UFC Fight Night, Sandhagen versus Figueiredo. We're going to be going over the entire fight card in this video, starting with the first opening fight all the way to the main event of Corey Sandhagen versus Davison Figueiredo. This card is absolutely stacked. It is going to be right up there with the UFC Kansas City Fight Night that we just had last weekend. Full of finishes. I think that this is going to be right on par with that one. So I'm going to give you my opinion on these fights. I'll give full predictions and outcomes later this week on Friday. That video will drop, but we're going to do a full breakdown and kind of early preliminary thoughts on each fight. Starting with the absolute banger of a women's fight that we've got starting off this card. Again, gotta love the UFC starting off any card with a women's fight. It's just going to start off with a bang. I don't think that we're going to have the same outcome in this fight as we did previously with Jocelyn Edwards leading off the Kansas City Fight Night. I don't believe either of these women possess the power or ability to put each other out. I don't really understand how the UFC is the most elite promotion in the world, and we have fighters on the card that are 4-3. That just goes to show you how distraught and just fucking terrible some of the women's divisions are right now. Yeah, the lightweight division and the featherweight division and the light heavyweight division and the men's are just as much of a disaster, but 4-3 and we're in the UFC. I mean, come on. I don't really have much of a dog in this fight. I would assume that Juliana is fighting for her contract to stay with the UFC. I don't understand. I don't. Like, how can you be 4-3 and in the UFC? Like, she's only had 7 fights. I get that Bo Nickal, who's also on this fight card, also only has 7 fights, but he is also obviously a very, very different story than Juliana Miller. But absolute barn burner to start off this one. Thomas Peterson and Dontel Mays. The heavyweight division, just to be honest, a lot of the divisions right now in the UFC are kind of struggling. The heavyweight is no different. The top 5, a lot of them have already fought each other, some of them multiple times. Anyone outside the top 5 looks like they shouldn't even belong in the octagon. Their skills are extremely mediocre, and the only reason that they're in the UFC seemingly is because they're a big body and they don't mind fighting. Again, 11-8. What are we doing? Why is Dontel Mays still in the UFC? You're telling me that the most elite promotion in fighting can't fill a heavyweight roster better than this bum that's almost got a 50-50 record in his pro MMA fighting. This is most likely not going to be a very high-level matchup. Thomas Peterson is a little bit of a favorite. Last loss was against Gaziv. Did he fight? He fought Usman's brother. That must have been right after Usman's... Oh no, that was last year. So both of these guys, I mean, Dontel Mays is on a 2-fight skid. They've both lost to Gaziv. I would assume that both of these guys are also fighting for their ability to stay within the UFC. That seems to be a common theme in these last 2 fight night weekends. And that tends to happen, especially towards the middle of the year. Dana and Hunter are trying to get those 3 fights that people are contracted to out of the way, and these random fight nights are the best way to do that. So another, honestly, these first 3, maybe even 4, like at least one person in the matchup is fighting for their ability to stay within the UFC. And the story is no difference with Gaston Bolaños and Quang Lee. Quang Lee is on a 3-fight skid already, or a 2-fight skid, sorry. He lost to Chris Gutierrez, which is his most notable loss, but he's on a 2-fight skid since he's gotten the UFC. It's no secret that you typically start with a 3-fight contract, bare minimum. This guy is probably on his last fight of his contract. If Quang Lee doesn't get a win here and get back in the win column, we're likely going to see him get moved back to the regional scene. Very similar to what I would believe is going to happen to Cameron Simon. 3 fights lost in a row. Send him back down to the minors, get his confidence back up, and we'll see him again in another couple of years. Quang Lee is a little different. He's 33 years old. He's not 24 like Cameron Simon. So if Quang Lee, if we see him get moved down to the regional scene, I'm not sure we're going to see him again in the UFC. But again, another fight on this card where he is 1,000% fighting for his ability to stay in the UFC and on the roster. I think this is going to be a pretty fun matchup, but I think there's going to be a decent bit of grappling involved. I mean, Gaston's got very, very good takedown percentage. Not necessarily shooting a lot of takedowns, but I would be very surprised if this stays on the feet the whole 15 minutes, if it goes the length. But definitely fighting for his spot. Gaston is, I believe, also not doing super hot since he got in the UFC. He's 1-2 in his last 3. His only loss was against Marcus McGee, which Marcus McGee is one of the top prospects in the bantamweight division right now. I have heard some rumblings that Marcus McGee is going to be fighting Peter Yan for a huge jump up in the rankings. If that's true, that would be crazy. It would be very similar to the path that Sugar Sean took. Sugar Sean, I believe, was 12 or 13 when he got matched up with Yan, and pretty much skipped the whole line. And Marcus McGee is a tough fight. Again, he is one of the top prospects in the bantamweight division. He's on a massive, I don't think he's lost since he's been in the UFC. Yeah. He's on a 4-fight win streak. Everything except his fight against Jonathan Martinez, who Jonathan Martinez is a very, very tough matchup. Was a finish. So I'm gonna say Quang Lee is definitely gonna have a tough matchup in front of him to stay in the UFC. So another one, Mariana Rodriguez. If I'm not mistaken, she's on a 3-fight skid as well. Her last fight that she won was 3 years ago, I want to say. 2 years ago. So she's 1-4 in her last 5 fights. Again, this just goes to show you the current state of some of the divisions within UFC. 1-4 in your last 5, that should be a one-way ticket to the regional scene. Go fight at LFA, go fight at Cage Warriors, go fight somewhere, not the UFC. Lost to Andrade, who Andrade is certainly on a decline. We've seen the best of her days. Jandradova is going to fight for the title next. She lost a unanimous decision. That's crazy. Jandradova is very, very good. And Jandradova is a decision machine. She doesn't finish a lot of her fights. But as far as the strawweight division is concerned, she has fought kind of the who's who, if you want to call it that, in the strawweight division. But if she loses this fight, she's going to be 1-5 in her last 5. Very Michael Chandler-esque. I believe she's definitely going to be fighting for her spot on the roster here. And she's got a tough matchup in Jillian Robertson. Jillian Robertson is a slick jiu-jitsu practitioner. She's got very, very, very dangerous jiu-jitsu. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that Jillian is going to try and get this to the ground. She's one of those fighters that knows her method of victory, and that is one of the I feel like strongest attributes that you can have as a fighter is knowing where your strong suits are and getting to that point. Like, she knows that she's not the best striker, but she does know that she's one of the best grapplers in the division, if not the best. So she knows where to take the fight, and 99% of the time she gets the fight there. It's so frustrating when you see a fighter that's really good somewhere, and that's their clear, obvious path to victory, and they just don't go there. Their game plan doesn't involve it. It makes no fucking sense. But Jillian Roberts is one of those people that she plays to her strong suits very, very well. And I do believe that this line, and I'm the first one to say that betting lines of like minus 500 and larger are crazy in fighting, because literally anything can happen. We've seen it time and time again. But in this matchup, I could see the minus 360 being a little bit of a small odd here. I would have seen this as a minus 500 or larger. I think Jillian Roberts is going to take her down very quickly in this fight, and it's going to stay there. And she's most likely going to finish this by submission. I'll call official predictions later on, but this is one fight on this card that I'm very confident in. Very confident. Ryan Loder and Amzat. This is going to be a pretty good fight, I think. Amzat has a ton more experience than Ryan Loder. It's Ryan Loder's second fight in the UFC, coming off of Tough. So he has definitely proven that he's a gritty guy. He had some gnarly fights on Tough. So second fight in the UFC technically against a very seasoned. I mean, he's got quite a few more fights than Ryan. But Ryan is a very gritty, grimy, wear you down, just in your face the whole fight type of fighter. Very evenly matched in height. I'm expecting this one to be a very good fight. And this is crazy to me. Crazy. I know Amzat has a wealth of experience and has a lot more, but this is only his second fight in the UFC. He's coming from LFA, and he was a dog in LFA, don't get me wrong, but the UFC is a different story, and this is a great matchup. They're both one fight removed from their UFC debut. I don't agree with this betting line whatsoever. I think it's going to be a lot closer. I mean, when you see lines like this, guys, you're expecting to see some 10-8 rounds. I'm not expecting to see any 10-8 rounds here. I don't. Could be wrong, but I think that Ryan Loder has good enough wrestling to mitigate Azamat's wrestling. They're both well-rounded. It's not like Ryan Loder is just a wrestler. Like, if he needs to stand up and bang, he can. I think he would much prefer wrestle against the fence, tire his opponent out. But stylistically, this is a fun matchup. I'm excited for this one as well. Moving on, Yana Santos and Miesha Tate. They're just loading us up on girl fights, huh? Not much to say on this one. Very, very even odds. Miesha Tate, we know what we're going to get. You know what we're going to get. They basically fed her opponent in her comeback, so to speak. Again, I really don't have a dog in this fight. I really don't. I really don't. Both of them are up there in age. Miesha Tate's closing in on 40. Looks like she's got a fucking stick up her ass right here. Standing like a... It's odd. Anyways, another exhilarating women's fight on this card. Probably going to go to a decision. If Miesha Tate doesn't get this to the ground, I don't really see a world where she's able to outstrike Yana Santos. Miesha is not a very competent striker, in my opinion. I think she's very, very similar to Mackenzie Dern. She has spurts where she shows here and there, hey, I can strike, but 99% of the time, very lackluster. Looks like she just walked into her first 9-round boxing fight, or a 9-round boxing class. So I think if she doesn't get that fight to the ground quickly, she's probably going to be in trouble. Not so much that she's going to get finished, but probably going to lose a decision if she can't get it to the ground. Who the fuck is this guy? They let this fucking bum back in the UFC? Are we in that bad of a shape in the lightweight division that we need the hardest hitting 145er back? His last fight in the UFC was what, 2022? 2021? Holy shit, guys. I cannot believe that they let this guy back in the UFC. 29-21. What are we doing? You're telling me, UFC, you're telling me that there is not a guy in the 155-pound division somewhere in the world that is a better option than Jeremy Stephens. There's not a guy on a regional scene at the 155 that was a better option. What are we doing? This is one of the biggest bums that the UFC has ever had. And it was awesome when they got rid of him. And he did what he needed to. He went to bare knuckle. And he should have fucking stayed there. Nobody wanted to see this clown back in the UFC. No one. Absolutely no one. God. I don't even know what. I mean, they are feeding the Jeremy Stephens to Mason Jones. Mason Jones is a great up and coming prospect in the lightweight division. Here is what an example of the UFC filling a lightweight position with a very, very promising up and comer. Mason Jones is an extremely talented prospect. 30 years old. He's still got a lot of miles in the tank. Coming out of Cage Warriors. Did very, very well in Cage Warriors. He was in the UFC before. I want to say he took a late notice fight. So he got into the UFC in 2021 from Cage Warriors. Went in the UFC, had a good win over David Onama. Not really sure what the reason that he went back to the regional scene was, because I mean, I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, this is a classic, just opposite sides of the spectrum, right? You got Mason Jones, who's coming in on a 4-fight win streak. He's 15-2. He's young. He's hungry. He's just getting back into the UFC. And then you got Jeremy Stephens, who is 38, has absolutely no business being in the UFC. He has no business fighting anymore. I mean, he has 50 professional fights, and he has 21 losses. Guys, again, the UFC lightweight division is in shambles if Jeremy fucking Stephens is coming back to fight. It's perplexing. This is like some Anthony Smith type shit right here. Why? Why? What's next? Are we going to give Jeremy Stephens another legendary send-off like we gave Anthony Smith? For his fucking famous one-liner at the Conor McGregor presser? It's a very confusing move by the UFC. I don't know if they signed him for a multiple fight contract or if this was just a, hey, fill this spot, we need someone to fight this guy and get absolutely mauled. Do you want to get mauled? And he was fucking stupid enough to say yes. But I completely, again, I don't make fight predictions until the scale is done and over with, but pretty fucking confident in this one, guys. Pretty fucking confident. Moving on. This is going to be a fun fight. Both of these guys are making their UFC debuts. Just kidding. This guy is on his first fight, removed from his UFC debut. This guy's on his second fight, removed from his UFC debut. We'll call it one fight removed, because he fought the same guy that he did on Dana White Contender Series, which is kind of weird. Knocked the guy out, and then he fights him again and loses in a split decision. Very, very even odds here. I would assume that my Ukrainian friend here is going to try and get this fight to the ground. You would assume. Maybe not, though. It's so, the bantamweight division is such a fun division because you truly have, it's a weight where, yeah, they make 135, but then most people at bantamweight, when they step in that octagon, they're looking 150, 155 probably for like the median guy that's in the bantamweight division. They're probably fighting between 150 and 155, maybe 160 on the high end. But the bantamweight division is perfect because the skill blend with how fast they are. You can still be strong at bantamweight. You can still touch people and put their lights out. It's fun. You know, you see matchups like this where both guys are pretty well rounded, and this could go anywhere. Stylistically, this fight could go anywhere, and it'll be fun to see. Most guys in the bantamweight division, they're not just like, I can strike, my jiu-jitsu is not very good, my wrestling is not very good. They might still have holes, but most guys in the bantamweight division are pretty well rounded because you have to be. You can't get, in my opinion, really far in the UFC's bantamweight division unless you are genuinely very well rounded, very well rounded. So both of these guys are very green in the UFC. It's a good test for both of them. They both have faced adversity early on, coming off of their debut. So this is gonna be a fun fight. I'm sure that this is gonna be mixed up pretty well. It's not just gonna be a striking match. I can see this fight going to the ground a little bit, and we'll see who gets the better of those exchanges once it does. I'm almost certain it'll go to the ground. Montel Jackson and Daniel Marcos. This is going to be a banger. I'm super, super excited for this one. Montel Jackson always has a really good pace, good striker. Daniel Marcos is obviously, he's very confident coming into this fight. Very good win over Adrian Yanez. He also beat John Castaneda, who fought Chris Gutierrez this last weekend. Put up a decent fight against him. John Castaneda's definitely no scrub. Beat Davey Grant. Davy Grant's kind of taken a little bit of a decline as of late. He's not as much of a prospect as he was when he first got in the UFC. There was a lot of steam behind him. But either way, Daniel Marcos, undefeated. Other than his no contest, he has not lost in the UFC. Hasn't lost ever. A lot of confidence. It's got to be, if you're Montel Jackson, you got to know that Daniel Marcos is going to bring it, and he's going to have a lot of confidence, no shortage of confidence. When guys have this kind of record, the confidence, it goes. He's probably got the same level of confidence in himself as like an Islam Makhachev that has defended his title multiple times and just is brimming with it. Like 17-0, he's stepping in there thinking there's not a fucking person on this planet that can touch me. So this is a high stakes fight. Montel Jackson, if he can take out undefeated surging prospect and Daniel Marcos, puts him in a good position to probably fight someone either right outside the top 15 or someone right at the top 15 in his next fight in the bantamweight division. Again, the bantamweight division is stacked. It is one of the only divisions in the UFC that's really not a shit show right now. And the top 15 is murderer's row. So both of these guys are probably very close to their next fight being for a ranked number, if not right outside it. So a lot of high stakes in this fight. It's going to be a high pace, no doubt about it. Super excited for this fight. Odds are, and that goes to show you how skilled Montel Jackson is. You have someone that's 17-0, and the odds makers have Montel Jackson as a favorite. And here's why. His only two losses in the UFC are against Ricky Simón, he had a tough few fights, and then he came back in his last fight in his hometown and starched Basharat, and it was a nasty KO. So a valid loss. And then Brett Johns, another kind of valid loss. So just beat Damon Blackshear. We just saw Damon Blackshear had a really good performance last weekend. Julio Arce, JP Buys, he's a bum. So his strength of schedule isn't necessarily huge, but you can see why they have him as a favorite. He has more fights in the UFC. He's only lost twice in the UFC. He hasn't lost in 5 years. He's been a little inactive at that point. Only fought 5 times in the last 5 years, so not super active at all. But very interesting that they've got him as such a heavy favorite against a surging undefeated guy. So this is going to be another fun one. Santiago Ponzinibbio and Daniel Rodriguez. Daniel Rodriguez has had a tough last few fights. Lost to Machado Gary. He also lost to Kevin Gastelum. His most recent win was against Alex Morano, who Alex Morano really has been kind of struggling lately. If that win against Morano was 2-3 years ago, it would have been a lot more impressive. But I think Daniel Rodriguez got fed Alex Morano, which he was not even able to finish. So I think Daniel Rodriguez might be in a little bit of a weird spot right now. He, up until his fight with the Leech, he was doing pretty damn well. And since then, he was on a 3-fight skid and then barely got back in the win column against Morano with a split decision. So we could very well be seeing Santiago Ponzinibbio and this Daniel Rodriguez fight be potentially one of these guys' last fights. Ponzinibbio has been in the UFC for so long. I mean, 11 years now at this point. I think it's probably time for him to hang it up. He's not going to be making any type of push towards the top at this point in his career. 38 years old. These two guys, Muslim Salikov and Kevin Holland, are both at the top of the welterweight division. Like, those are some, not the very top, but those are some tough guys. Like, if you're not going to beat Muslim Salikov or Kevin Holland, you probably don't have a chance of going anywhere in the welterweight division. So at this time, with him being 38 years old, I would assume that if he doesn't win this fight, he's going to be done. And then same being said for Daniel Rodriguez. He's not in much better position. They're both almost 40 years old. I don't really see, if he can't beat Ponzinibbio, they're probably going to cut him too. So I wouldn't be surprised if either one of these guys is cut from the roster, whichever way this one goes, whether Ponzinibbio wins or Rodriguez wins. Probably going to be the last time we see one, maybe both of these guys. Moving on, this is probably, other than the main event, this is the most interesting matchup on the card. Renier just beat Kevin Holland. He's a brand new in the UFC. Gerald Meerschaert, kind of a gift. But Kevin Holland, depending on the night that you get Kevin Holland, he can be either an absolute nightmare, or it can go how Renier's last fight with him did go. And Renier is a former champion in another promotion. Like, he did very, very well in his fight against Kevin Holland. He did very, very well in his fight against Gerald Meerschaert. And submitting Gerald Meerschaert, here's the deal. Gerald Meerschaert is on the outs 1,000%, but subbing him is still in my opinion, a pretty good thing. Gerald Meerschaert's got some very good jiu-jitsu. He's got, I believe, he's up there with like Jim Miller in the amount of submissions that he has. So impressive nonetheless that De Ridder was able to submit Gerald Meerschaert and Kevin Holland. It's going to be a fun matchup. Bo Nickal is very green in MMA still. He's a championship D1 wrestler. Everyone knows that his strong suit is in wrestling, but he's been seen on multiple videos since he's been in the UFC, especially here late, him claiming that I'm a natural striker. Everyone was not very thrilled with his most recent performance against Paul Craig. They thought it was a little boring. Here's the deal. He went 3 rounds with Paul Craig. Paul Craig, he is on the outs, but nonetheless, it's still a very big jump and proved that he could strike with Paul Craig. Like, I think everybody thought that he was going to take Paul Craig down, maybe try and prove that his jiu-jitsu wasn't as good as everybody thinks, and that he was going to not be worried about the dangerous guard of Paul Craig. But he didn't. He stood there and picked Paul Craig apart for 15 minutes. He wanted to show everybody, hey, I can strike too. Everyone already knows I can wrestle, but let me show you the striking I've been working on. So I think Renier wants to get the fight to the ground because I think he's more confident in his jiu-jitsu. I think Bo Nickal's got really, really good wrestling, and he's starting to chain those jiu-jitsu and wrestling together. And we've seen him have some slick submissions. He's had a triangle, which I believe was his second win on the Contender Series. I believe this was a rear naked choke. So, like, we've seen him submit his opponents in the UFC, but none of them have been as talented on the ground as De Ridder. So this is a super fun fight. Bo Nickal has a lot to lose here, not as much as De Ridder. Bo Nickal is touted as he's going to be the next champion. He's 7-0. He's kind of gotten some big opportunities early on in his career, rightfully so. We haven't seen somebody with that kind of wrestling pedigree since, Cejudo or Cormier. So, I mean, I truly think that this is going to show the future trajectory, at least the near future trajectory of Bo Nickal. I think if he walks through De Ridder, takes him down, maybe submits him or knocks him out, I think he's going to get a ranked opponent next. Super fun fight. And the main event, Corey Sandhagen and Davison Figueiredo. I'll just start this by saying that I was a little bummed out that they made this fight, truthfully. I really wanted to see, and I think a lot of people wanted to see, Corey Sandhagen versus Sean O'Malley. Sure, does a rematch intrigue people? Can Sean fill the holes that Merab exposed in wrestling? I think people do want to see that, but I don't think we wanted to see an immediate rematch. I think the people have wanted to see Sandhagen versus O'Malley for years now, and because O'Malley, the UFC was pushing O'Malley so hard and giving him such high-profile fights. Not that Corey Sandhagen isn't a high-profile fight, but there are a lot of other people in the bantamweight division that draw more eyes than Corey Sandhagen as far as a casual standpoint. You know, Peter Yan, that got a lot more eyes than Corey Sandhagen probably would have, right? So I understand why the UFC made this one, but I really would have liked to have seen Corey Sandhagen go against Sean O'Malley for the #1 contender spot. But that's not how the dice rolls. We got Davison Figueiredo and Corey Sandhagen. Davison Figueiredo, his only losses in the UFC are to Brandon Moreno and Peter Yan. And then this bum from fucking 6 years ago. But I don't count that. His only 2 losses in the UFC as of very recent are Brandon Moreno and Peter Yan. I mean, he is a bad man. He's got, I believe, some of the most power at the bantamweight division, but he's really short. He's got a 6-inch disadvantage here. He's got a pretty big height disadvantage in most of his fights, but we've seen him time and time again not make it as much of a factor as a lot of people would think it would. We've seen him close the distance and put his hands on people. I mean, he's got very good wrestling. His jiu-jitsu is very good. When he gets on top of you, he does not just lay there and fucking waste the time and just stall. When he takes you down and he gets a dominant position on top, he's trying to hurt you and get you out of there, which is why a lot of fans love watching him fight. He's not in there to go to a decision. He is in there to hurt his opponent and not bring the judges into it. So Sandhagen is very hard to get down. His takedown defense is pretty good. It's certainly got a lot better over the recent years. This is his second fight camp now with Trevor Whitman. His last fight was against Umar, which didn't go his way, but he fought pretty well. So this is his second fight with Trevor Whitman in that camp. So he's got, I think that was really good for him. He is one of the most dynamic strikers in the UFC, up there with Sean O'Malley. That's why a lot of people want to see that fight. I hope we still do see that fight at some point. But both of these guys are going to be fighting for a #1 contender spot. Whoever Merab and Sean O'Malley, the winner is of that, will likely be facing the winner of this fight. So I really do think that there's title implications for this fight. And it's a fun matchup. Is Corey going to be able to use his footwork and his very unorthodox striking to manage the distance and keep Davison Figueiredo guessing, or is Davison Figueiredo going to be able to put the pace on Sandhagen and put him up against the fence? I think Sandhagen really has to control the middle of the octagon here. If he gets pushed up against the fence and lets Davison control the middle, he's going to find himself, I think, in a lot more trouble. So the key here, I think, is going to be Sandhagen using that footwork to stay away from Figueiredo, choosing his shots wisely, not overextending and opening himself up to a takedown. I can see if he gets taken down in the middle of the octagon, it being a big problem for him. And Sandhagen's scrappy. He Garambi rolls. He is not easy to keep down. I thought he did pretty good in the Umar fight. Obviously, he still got held down a decent bit, but Umar and Davison Figueiredo are both very skilled, just kind of a different style. Umar's got that Dagestani style wrestling, and Davison is more of a shoot the box and heavy pressure, a lot of damage. Whereas those Dagestani guys just like to wrap your legs up, Turk them, heavy on your hips, choose their spots where they're getting a couple shots in. So a completely different animal in Davison Figueiredo, but I think a lot of the same threats loom for Sandhagen in the wrestling department. So if he can keep this fight on the feet, the longer that he keeps this fight on the feet, the more of a chance he has to get this W. I don't necessarily see him finishing Figueiredo. This is probably going to go to a decision, but either way, we have a very fun night of fights ahead of us this weekend. These odds are crazy to me. I would expect these to level out a little bit more once we get closer to fight week, but we will put out our official predictions on Friday once all the fighters hit the scale. So that'll be out Friday afternoon, early evening. But I'm jacked about this one, guys. This is going to be a really fun fight card, just like the last one. We've got a handful of fighters that are going to be fighting to keep their spot as a UFC fighter, especially on the prelims. More notably on the main card, Santiago Ponzinibbio and Daniel Rodriguez. Man, it's going to be a really good fight card in Iowa. I'll see you there. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.